it's delicious food.
Food, glorious food. Don't look at my plate. The red.
We got gaming.
Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do...
Just about everything.
Nice, we did it right this time.
I'm learning. I'm leveling up.
Ah! So today we're going to be going over our trip that we literally just got back from.
Literally. You
Yeah.
can still hear that our voices are gone.
Just so rough. But yeah, we went to the Reckoning LARP. This is the second Reckoning LARP ever. Our first video on that, if you want to learn more about it, is up here, probably over your head somewhere. But watch that video. It'll just explain kind of what the LARP is about, the basic like factions and how it all operates.
And also kind of the basics of what a LARP is if you've never heard of it and you're very confused at this moment.
Being very confused, they're like, are you drinking tea?
It's
We're
like-
rough. Like,
Yeah.
it was a 15-hour drive. There was hail and rain.
Yeah, we stayed after to help clean up.
Yeah.
And I think that was the last straw for our bodies. Because
Yeah.
we got hailed on, and then sunny dried, and then hailed on, and then sunny dried, like 5 times.
Yeah, man, my body's like, ugh. Before we get into that, though, we have a special surprise for all of you.
It's a box!
We finally got our play button.
It's a box!
We got our play button. We're gonna open it up on camera because you all helped us get there. Oh, geez, you get a sharp thing.
Dun. You want to do the honors the other one?
Where you do the Imperial March. Dun, dun,
This is
dun,
our
dun,
march
dun,
toward
dun,
conquering the
dun,
world. Dun. Foam.
Ooh, there's
Letter.
foam.
Congratulations on your subscriber milestone. We are honored to take part in recognizing your achievement and want your experience to be exceptional. This award was inspired and packaged with great care by Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, Rick. If your award was damaged or shipping, blame Rick.
There we go.
Oh, I want to see it. Oh, it's a mirror.
Right?
So we can see our fame.
Thank you all. I mean, this
Oh no,
is...
you're showing our dirty
I know,
secrets.
sharing dirty secrets. Yeah, thank you all. This is just as much like your thing as ours. Like, it's incredible that you've helped us get to this milestone. So, here's the first 100,000. Hopefully, there'll be many millions more.
I don't know if there's that many people.
All of the people of the world. Toss it aside. Now.
All right, so with that out of the way, we have to talk about Reckoning.
Yeah.
So last year, we mentioned a lot of kind of like our own personal game and everything, and this year we kind of took a different approach. But before we start going into kind of the things that we did for the game and also like our experience during it, we know that this game had a lot of
Issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, in fairness, to make sure that like we want to be as transparent with you as possible on the things that are great about the game, but also the things that didn't land, the things that they definitely needs to still work on.
I think one of the biggest problems of the community is that, well, that the community has had with the game is that the issues that we saw in the first game tended to continue to the second one instead of growing out of it.
Right.
We kind of broke down the issues with Reckoning into 3 main factors, 2 of which are more before the game and 1 of which during.
Right.
Reckoning, throughout the year leading up to it, there was a big lack of communication.
For sure.
It tended to be difficult to get in contact with people, to get things approved, or to get like questions answered, or like any sort of like character questions.
Yeah, it's kind of big like lore questions, like, okay, like I want to make a character like this who's had these particular experiences. Does that fit into this world? And there was never any like clarification whether it did or it didn't. So
yeah,
you know.
and then or like people would get conflicting answers, or they'd have to like make up their own and then get told later that it was wrong.
Right.
And then that moves on to the second major problem that we noticed in the Reckoning community, or that the community had to experience, was the lack of development. So we talked about how from the first game there were these problems, and into the second game it didn't seem like a lot of these problems really got better.
Right.
In fact, a few of them got worse.
Yeah, especially because it thanks to like kind of the popularity and the excitement around it, the community got bigger, right? So there was more people there. So then you go and you take, you know, the problems of the past that haven't been addressed
then they
yet,
got bigger.
And they got bigger.
Yeah, and also when it comes to lack of development, not only were problems not solved, but like things that were promised that would be added to the game, like developed rules, developed lore, all those kinds of things. I don't think we really got much of that.
No, almost none of them.
Almost
In fact, there was
nothing,
a whole rule set that I had built my my character and some of their things around being able to do, you know, there was going to be like this knockout mechanic, and I
For
had
like the more nefarious groups.
yeah, and that was kind of one of the good things to make people like want to join it is like you get this extra mechanic if you're part of this particular kind of group.
And then like we didn't learn until at the game.
At the game they're announcing the rules, and that was one of the rules that wasn't announced.
And
it's
then
like
we went up after. We're like, hey, what about this rule? It's like, whoops, not part of the game.
yeah, things like that.
Yeah.
Those are definitely frustrating, and I can see it, especially if you're a new player. I mean, even if you're an experienced player, but if you're we're still pretty new players, and you're already somewhere where you feel a little bit of a drift, and then there's no like guidance to tow you along. Wait a sec, before we go any further, a message from our sponsor.
Oh, hello there. This is post-LARP event Hotel Clever trying to recuperate from all of the excitement. Now, during this last event it occurs to me that I might be camping wrong. I was alternately either wet, and cold, and at one point, my tent attacked me. A tent made me bleed. I'm doing it wrong. Luckily, today's sponsor, Skillshare, has a fix. I was able to find Camping for Total Beginners by Holly Stacy. On it, she was able to provide like a basic packing list, picking the right tent, ground cover, a sleeping bag to keep you warm and dry at night, and all the things one would need to make sure they're safe and comfortable on their first camping trip. She's super clear for those of you who are brand new to camping, or any of you who are used to it and, like me, I don't know, incompetent, I guess?
Or if you'd rather not subject yourself to the dangers of the outside, you can check out Real Productivity, How to Build Habits That Last by Thomas Frank. Here you can just learn how to organize your life and get things done. A skill we definitely could have used while organizing our tent.
But if you're interested in this skill or any other of like thousands, you're in luck. Because the first 1,000 of you to use the link in the description below will get 1 month free of Skillshare. Just think of all the incredible things you'll be able to learn in that month. Alright, well you do that, I'm going to do the most important part of camping. The recovery.
That bathtub was pretty amazing.
It was legit.
That's my doing. I made sure, like, if you ever go to LARP, especially a long one, make sure to get something on the way back to just decompress.
Yeah, she got a peasant's room and I got one with a beautiful bathtub.
And we
but
took turns.
We traded out.
Yeah, we
it
took
was
turns.
Really good.
Anyway, going off of that, our third biggest problem, which is a lack of official content. So this was, well, it also touches on the fact that there was a lack of put out of new rules or established rules. Like I know for bow knitters, the only rules we really have for us is like 2 vague sentences. And like that's basically how it is for all the artisans. There wasn't a lot of development for official content before the game, going into it, and then while we were at the game, there was very little official gameplay.
Yes, for sure. I know the overarching thought of the way this game is developed is that it's a lot of player-generated stuff. So you have like open sandbox, do your thing. Well, like a sandbox is still in a box, right? Like there's still those rule parameters. So without that first initial guidance of like, this is exactly the world you live in and these are exactly the rules, then all of the other play you make is kind of amorphous. You're not sure what you really can do. So the problem with having something that's like all user-generated content is like there's no other content.
And also it takes a while for people to realize that they're not being, there's no game there for them.
Yeah, they're not being
So they
guided,
have to make something up.
Right.
That's a big gap of, I know the first few days of the game were the most frustrating for a lot of people because they didn't know what to do.
Right.
With all that said, because of how amazing the community was.
Oh, I still had a blast.
We still had a blast.
I would go again immediately.
Immediately.
I would take a long hot bath, I'd sleep for a couple days, and then I'd go again.
Like, I think it's a thing of, as long as you know that these are the problems, and you really integrate yourself to the community beforehand, so you have that safety net of, like, game when you get there, it's so worth it.
And that's the beauty of it, is kind of that other side of the user-generated content, is once people kind of realize that, like, oh, we're making this game, people made game. Like they started just making up quests. I know we, thanks to our pre-work, luckily, we had a lot of quests to give out to people.
That basically became our game.
Yeah, our game was basically like almost like
running quests.
Pseudo little quest runners. Yeah, we were basically like NPCs.
Yeah. Because originally we thought we would kind of fill in the blanks between official quests, but then it became clear that there wasn't many official quests.
Right.
So we were like, cool. Expand.
Right.
Because we didn't want people to be without any sort of gameplay, especially since a lot of them were our community.
Yeah, so do you want to get into that, like the things we did?
Yeah, so let's talk about the things that we did. So the only thing that we decided to do not 2 weeks before the event was the cafe.
Right, yeah.
So, but we still organized and bought everything 2 weeks before the event.
Yeah, so we thought it would be fun to have an actual cafe, like where coffee is served for a good portion of the morning. We had like baked goods that we went out every morning to get fresh.
Yeah, we went to like a local GC, so we would get fresh pastries, bring them to there, and we'd sell everything for silver. We had an espresso machine and like a milk foamer. We'd make like lattes. We had hot coffee.
We had like the flavored syrups for the drinks.
Syrups.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Our friend who plays Ash, which we mentioned last time, she just, because we were so busy, stepped in to help us, and by the end of it, she's like, this is really fun.
Yeah, like there's something fun about being, it's almost the same with if we had a space to be like a tavern owner, right? Like in that world, you're fulfilling this gap, and it kind of worked because...
It's just fun.
Well, also like in character, it kind of worked because you're like in a trade kind of organization, and I'm somebody who needs to make a lot of contacts because I do like nefarious spy kind of stuff.
And it put us in a central, not really central, but like a regular location for people to find us for all of the quests and everything that we were sending people out on.
Which brings me to the second thing within that space is as we came up with a bounty board. Now this is something that Theseus and you had originally
Theseus
come up
had
with.
reached out to us and he's like, hey, I want there to be a mechanic in the game that allows people to do bounties. The problem is like it's a little bit like wibbly of like, go kill this person, and then how do you prove it? So I'm not sure if you watched our previous episode
on making coins.
On making coins, but we made all of these little murder coins, which have a skull on the front and crossed swords on the back. And basically what we would do is we had 8 of them.
Yeah, we numbered them.
And we had a board. People could come up and they'd pay like an administration fee to put the bounty as well as the bounty.
Right.
We would use the part of the administration fee to hire a runner who would run the coin to someone and be like, you have been marked for death. And then explain the rules to them, which was, the coin is lootable. They can only give it up if someone like cuts them down.
Right.
And then the person can take the coin, bring it back to us, and then we can see the number on it and pay out that amount.
Which came up to be so much fun. Like it started off kind of slow where people were just getting the hang of it, but once people got the hang of it,
there was a lot of people that were like, this was the most fun thing of the game.
It was so much fun to see like people coming up and like either just wanting to screw with their friends. After a while, like objects became bountyable.
Yeah, there was one person that lost a staff.
Yeah.
And they couldn't find it, so they're like, you know what? I'll just make a bounty on it.
Yeah, it was perfect. There was one.
Oh my God, tell the Prince story.
Oh, so in the Suzak Mar camp, which are like traders, caravan kind of vibe, right?
Yeah.
So they have a prince, and he's very like...
And he had a throne
that he would
and
lounge
a crown across in the very middle of his camp and like stare out the door.
Yeah, and whenever he goes anywhere, he goes on like a palanquin that people
can pick
carry.
up the crown, pick up the throne.
Yeah, and then they carry him around. So I set out a bounty for him for like 60 silver.
Yeah.
Which is a huge bounty, like really big.
There isn't much silver in the game, so when we talk about how much bounties are, like it's a lot.
Yeah, so this funny pair who were in the Hadrian camp came up, and they saw that, and they're like, all right, we're gonna go get him. Now, I had delivered the bounty coin to the prince, and he's like juggling the bounty coin, staring out the door.
Everyone else, like, when they get a bounty, they're like,
Hiding.
He sits on his throne in the middle of the camp, like lounging, flicking the coin between his fingers, watching the door.
And you see all the vultures
so
kind of
amazing.
walking by, waiting for him to come out or whatever.
Yeah.
So these two, it was so funny from my point of view because I know they're hunting him.
Uh-huh.
I go about my business in the camp, and I see them doing kind of what everybody else does, like outside of the camp, stalking him, right? So I'm like, okay, they're shooting their shot, and then I walk by again, and they're in their camp.
And he's like talking to him.
And they're talking to them, but they're being very animated and they're being very friendly. So clearly they've like maneuvered their way into the camp like in a friendly way.
Yeah.
And they're pointing at the palanquin that they used to carry him around, and they're pointing at him and stuff, and he's laughing and talking. So I walk away. I come back and they're running down the street with him in the palanquin, and he's completely tied up with a bottle in his mouth, like a potion bottle in his mouth, and he's completely tied up. And they're running for my stall to try to turn in the bounty.
Because I guess they thought the bounty was to bring him alive.
They thought it was a kidnapping because there were kidnapping bounties.
Yeah, there was bounties
right?
was like bring alive.
So Theseus is walking down the street and he sees he sees them coming, and he just pulls out a sword, casually walks over him, and he stabs the prince in the chest.
The prince just goes.
He just kind of lays down, and he grabs the coin off of him, and he's like, "Thanks, guys." And they're like, "What are you doing? That was our bounty." He's like, "It's a death bounty," and he just walks it on over and takes it from me. But they had worked so hard to kidnap this
He's
prince.
like, they're like, no!
It was so funny for me to see the little vignettes of like them stalking outside, them being very friendly with him, pointing at the palanquin, talking, and then them running down the street with him all tied up.
Yeah. There was
Good.
another big Suzak Mar bounty that like
Yeah, so there was, I believe his in-character name was Jabbar. So at first, like, someone was like, "Oh, let's post a bounty for him," and they had dropped off some coin for other things too. So I posted the bounty, and it was only like 15 silver, which was still, compared to other people, a large bounty.
Yeah, I think the common bounty was 10 silver.
Yeah. What I didn't realize is he held, like, within the Suzak Mar, kind of a higher rank.
Yeah.
So he was like, wait, the prince got like a 60-something, I only get a 15. Like, it was almost like disrespectful for him. So his friends pull me over during the soup competition. They're like, we gotta fix this, come on.
Yeah.
And they wanted to make like a ridiculous bounty. So they put him up for 100 silver.
Yeah, they all gathered their individual coin and all.
Yeah.
Like, there was 5 of them came to you and they're like, we must fix this.
Yeah, so we're like, by moonlight, because by that point it's nighttime. By moonlight, I'm counting out 100 silver and I'm writing his name on the board. And they call him over and it's like, it's dark. And I'm holding up the board and I'm like, "What are you doing out here? You should run." And I pick up the lantern.
And light up 100 silver.
And he goes, and then he starts like booking away. I go downstairs where people are like meeting for dinner and stuff. I'm like, "Jabbar has a bounty of 100 silver." And then people just run out of the...
So he had a mask as part of his costume, which he didn't wear all the time.
Right.
From then on, until the bounty was collected, he would wear the mask continuously and just like try.
He was a hunted man.
Hunted man. Like, you could just see people circling around the Suzak Mar.
Yeah, a bunch of little vultures just watching.
Just people walking around, like, you'd hear it on the lips of everyone. It's like, did you hear that this person has 100 silver bounty? It's like, who's that person? I don't know, but we're going to find him.
Oh, it was so funny. There was at one point when it went down, he was like right there. People were like, "Who is that?" And I kind of looked over, saw he was there. I'm like, I can't really divulge that. Or the same with when people would always ask, like, "Who put this bounty on?"
It's like, that's not good business.
That's not good business. That's part of what you have to figure out. But yeah, bounty board, that worked out great.
Being turned in, I think it was Camilla that finally turned it in. One of the people of the Hadrian camp. And as she's walking up to put the coin down, someone comes up from the side and cuts her down to take
Stabs her a bunch, just grabs and goes, "Gah, gah, 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 gah," takes the coin and puts it on the thing. And they're just like, "It's the bounty. I just need the bounty."
Coin.
Like, so I paid them.
Yeah, we started like there started to be bounty vultures.
Yeah, they just wait by the bounty table for someone to start turning it in, and then they kill them and take the bounty coin.
So you almost had to be like sneaky of collecting and turning in your bounty.
But that was that's kind of what we mean by that player-generated game, because even when you make a rule set for a game that is completely like, this is just what you do.
Yeah. Then
Other people just start riffing on it. Yeah.
Off of it.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, it just becomes more and more fun. I think that's my general mentality when it comes to like D&D or LARP or any kind of game like this, is the more mechanisms you have in place that are just kind of like simple, good mechanisms, the more opportunity you give for people to build off of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, play their own game.
Yeah, because like you're basically telling them like this is a game you can play, and you're giving them that stability of a rule that they can fall back on and build off of.
It was so much fun. So the next thing we kind of made on our own. So there was an issue with the first Reckoning, and that was economy.
Yeah, so I just mentioned before, there isn't much silver in the game, and especially since there wasn't many official quests, there isn't much way to get silver.
Yeah, and that becomes a problem if you want to do anything. So like even for us with our little shop, shop, we're like, okay, if it
like
costs
people,
one silver
to buy a coffee, that becomes difficult because people only have like 5 silver.
yeah,
for...
that's a fifth of your entire income
yeah,
for a cup of
and
coffee.
artisans start with nothing.
You're just screwed,
Yeah.
right? So we wanted to have some fun where you can like gamble. Like I brought a bunch of games like Knuckle Bounce
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of these like games of chance.
Uh-huh.
But we're like, okay, so what is someone going to come on one like round, put down their silver and lose?
There wasn't
a
enough
fifth of their
silver in the
income?
game for any sort of gambling game without it feeling super high stakes.
Yeah.
So
we made some stamps, some rubber stamps.
which, by the way, we should do a video on these because they worked so well.
They really did. It was like a last moment thing the night before we left.
We bought some wooden rounds. We sprayed them all like 2 different colors for a half silver and a quarter silver.
Uh-huh.
You used your laser engraver to make the stamp, and then I painstakingly hand stamped
Hundreds
all
of them.
400 of them,
Yeah.
both sides.
But that gave us the opportunity to take a single silver and then break it down to either like
quarter silver,
yeah.
half silver. A lot of people were using the quarter silvers because it gave them the most game.
Yeah, but that worked out so great. And
yeah, and
that
eventually you
gambling
got like
night.
a gambling den like
Yeah,
boss.
I got my pit boss who was controlling all the gambling and stuff.
And that's just another thing of like, as soon as there is anything to facilitate the game, like the community just took it and ran.
Yeah.
I think you had people betting on the people betting.
Yeah, there was. We started off like just a couple people playing some Knuckle Bounce. I showed them how to play it, and they started betting money on it. And then like the circle of people playing, it's like playing dice. So you've got like 2 or 3 people like crouched down, rolling dice on
And
the
then
floor.
eventually there was people watching.
There was
them
like
play.
that ring got bigger and bigger until there was like 15 people playing, and then there were people on the outside of that ring also betting like on the
I
people
bet that
betting.
person's gonna win.
Yeah. So like there was one dude who was super talented with it. Knuckle Bounce is kind of like jacks the way we were playing it.
throw it up
You
and
throw it
try to
up and
get
you
a-
try to catch all the ones that are on the floor and then catch that one. And there was this one dude who was just amazing at it. Like other people are like fumbling, and he's
He
like
played
every
jacks
time.
on the playground a lot
Man,
as a
he
kid.
really so people were like betting on him, being like, "Oh no, he's gonna get it." And
Yeah.
then people betting it was a lot of fun. I wish we got to do it more often. The pub there was
The
a
tavern, yeah.
yeah.
The
So let me.
pub
We
tavern.
didn't even set the stage of this location. This location had a big castle.
Yeah, I
on-
think it used to be a power treatment facility that has been slowly transformed into a castle to hold like Ren Fair. It's called Bird Cell Castle.
Yeah, if you want to look it up.
Yeah.
We'll leave a link to it or something if you want to see
Yeah.
what it looked like. But in that castle, there's like a tavern area. Like it has a
Mm-hmm.
stage. It has all these barrels set up. It's really dimly lit. It's very much like a dungeon.
Yeah, dungeon tavern.
Yeah, but it was a little bit out of the way, so it was
So
hard
yeah,
to
the
facilitate.
way that the game worked was almost the entirety of the faction camps were set up on basically the back of the castle.
Right.
Because you had to go around the castle to get in. So our cafe and everything was set on the front of the castle, and then you had to walk through the entire courtyard and up the castle to get to the tavern.
Right.
So it was like this big U to get to anything else, and no one wanted to leave the faction camp because there was a system in play where you could raid each other's faction camp for faction wealth, like gold bars and stuff. So as soon as anyone went to like the forest to do battle, everyone's like, I don't know if we should go.
Right.
And also all the political game was happening in the faction camp. So it became like a split where it's like, I don't know if I want to walk that far just to play some dice.
It became a bit of a mission.
Yeah.
But it's fun because the one night that people did stay and like really play and go crazy,
Mm-hmm.
it was raining like so you were almost stuck inside of the tavern at that
Yeah.
point. It was a deluge.
And they took advantage of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh-huh. So another thing that we did, so up to, and this kind of comes into the communication thing, where up to the event, there was talk of there being competitions.
Right.
Like of seemingly official competitions, but once we got to the event, like it became, like, it was kind of like no, this is a player run thing, do as you wish.
Right.
So we're like, okay, let's do as we wish.
Yeah, there weren't really like official rules kind of set up in place, and for one, the bard competition. Which shout out to Ben and Abby from
Yeah.
LARPshire for totally like helping run this thing. Once we realized like, hey, people are waiting.
People are waiting, and there's no actual rules for this, so we're just gonna make up our own and run it.
Yeah, we're
and
gonna do
people
it.
had so
It
much
was,
fun.
first of all, the talent in that community is just nuts. Like, we were
Yeah.
like, stage is open, let's do this, come for sign-ups, and a whole bunch of people signed up to do their acts.
Mm-hmm.
And their acts were, like, hysterical. There were comedy acts that were really good.
Yeah, some
Again,
people told stories.
Yeah.
Some people did like comedy acts. A lot of people did songs.
Uh-huh.
Some people some people treated us to be backup singers
Yo.
for "We Will Rock You."
yeah, which, man, and emceeing that, so I ended up emceeing it, like, because
Mm-hmm.
I am loud. and it just completely rocked my voice. Like,
Yeah, the next day you just didn't talk.
for the rest of the whole thing, like my voice was all raw and messed up, but man, it was worth it. It was
I
so
know
much
a lot
fun.
of people said that the Bard competition was one of their favorite moments.
Yeah. Like, shout out to everybody who jumped on stage
Uh-huh.
and did it, and also everybody just in the crowd because they were so supportive.
I think I've heard people say that the Bard competition was one of the best moments of feeling like a whole community,
Yeah.
rather than a bunch of factions that were tense with each other.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. The other thing was
the soup
the
competition.
soup competition.
So the soup competition was one that ran a little bit closer to the wire because a lot of people put in, like, they went and bought supplies, they
Right.
made soup, they spent all day making the soup, and then in the wee hours of the night, like in the evening as it's starting to get dark, we realized that there wasn't any judging or anything going on. So we're like, cool, go get some judges. So you collected one person from each faction.
Right.
And then we took our plates and our bowls and stuff from the cafe, and I walked them around to every single soup and made up rules as I went.
Yeah.
I was like, the soup must be like ingested through every
Consume
sense.
them with your eyes first. We're holding
Consume the
torches over
lanterns,
them.
like, consume the soup with thine eyes. Consume the soup with thine senses.
That was fun.
And just walking around the camp, like, just trying to be as goofy as possible, this procession of soup judges.
Oh.
And then we got
Oh,
to
okay.
the Vatican. So we started with the Suzak Mar, and they had this lovely, like, lamb,
It was
apricot.
probably the best
Yeah.
soup I've ever had in my life.
Which
It
is
was
why they
incredible.
won.
Yeah.
And then we went through the other soups, and all of them were really
They
good.
were really good. Yeah.
I feel bad because, like, we got to them later, so a few of them, like, they were like, hey, it's almost gone. We're like, we're sorry.
Yeah.
But when we got to the Vatican, all the Vatican were like, we don't have a soup. Like, we didn't make a soup. And Oaken's like, we have a soup. And he's one of the judges, so I'm like, Oaken, I don't know if it's your soup, you're a judge. He's like, it's fine. You'll understand. So he goes back to his tent and he pulls out a can of Old Bay
clam chowder.
That's like the clam chowder you also need to mix with water.
Uh-huh.
And he just opens the can and he's like, my soup!
And it's like cold and like
It's
congealed.
cold and congealed, and I just hand out spoons because, like, I'm like, I don't know if we want to bother putting that in a bowl, just everyone scoop from the top.
Oh.
And I'm allergic to clams, so I'm like, take a step back. So then we went to the middle to judge, and we decided that since Oaken soup was so horrible, that the winner, which ended up being the Suzak Mar camp, would get Oaken as a as a punishment for his soup. He was given tied up to the Suzak Mar camp. He's like, you get him, teach him how to soup.
So like,
Or make him into soup.
that's the thing though, stuff like that, like even things that were kind of on the wire and like trying to figure out, like
Yeah,
once
the
players
community
Yeah.
really pulled it together.
once the players get a hold of it, they're like, okay, let's do this thing. Let's
yeah,
kill it.
Like once it became clear that like we could do, like, the rules weren't there.
Right.
We're like, cool, let's do this.
yeah, make rules. We know how to judge
Yeah, we know how.
We
judge
know how to
soup.
judge soup.
Put in mouth. Tastes good. Good soup.
soup. Good soup.
Beyond that,
Yeah.
there were. We'll touch on the quest that we did at the end because that's
Yeah.
probably gonna be a longer one. But there was a wedding in game.
Yeah, and like a legit.
Like, this was something that Theseus, two of his friends, had gotten married in real life.
Right.
And they had like a civil service, so they never had like a big, spectacular wedding.
Right.
So he wanted to put together this big wedding
Right.
in game for them to like have their moment. Their characters were getting married
Yeah.
too. So we're like,
Oh yeah, we must participate.
we
in
must
this thing.
participate. So since we go to the store every day to get food, we got them like wedding cakes.
Yep.
We got them flowers. We got them champagne to pop at the beginning of the
Yeah.
ceremony. We got a wooden goblet that we like wood burned,
Yeah.
like
The
carvings
night
on
before
the
we left, she's wood burning at like 2 a.m. like trying to make it look pretty.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, it was really nice. It was a
Yeah.
really sweet little ceremony.
It was interesting because in the middle of the ceremony, orcs started to attack.
Yeah.
So a lot of people had to leave, and we were like, orcs attack. And then I think me and a few other people basically stood up and they're like, no, there will always be war and always be fighting. In this moment, this is what's important.
Yeah.
And we all stayed.
Yeah.
And there was like
everyone stayed. Like,
a
good.
lot of the Vatican left because
Yeah.
I think it was their camp that got attacked first.
Yeah.
And then as the ceremony is going on, like bow knitters are coming from the side. They're like, "Hey, everyone's dead in camp. We really need help." It's
We're like,
no,
go away.
Wedding.
It was
was
really
such a
nice.
good
It was
wedding.
super sweet. Yeah, that was a fun little moment. By the way, we've mentioned him a few times. Special shout out to Theseus.
Yeah, I don't think that there is a person in this world who cares as much as Theseus.
For sure.
Like, consistently throughout the year, Theseus is basically the heart of the community.
Yeah, anybody who's like new or is looking for help or whatever, he jumps
Oh my god,
in
go
on.
to
He
Theseus.
helps. Yeah.
He knows everyone. He does everything.
Yeah.
He's genuinely trying to make everyone's game better no matter what happens.
Yeah, which is hard because like during the event, he's head of a group called the Jaegers, and like last year they caused a lot of mischief and trouble, and this year it's kind of the same at the first couple days, and there was that vacuum of game we talked about where there wasn't anything official. So like he was stirring the pot hard to make a game for people.
But then the game couldn't quite support it because there wasn't a lot of like authority to basically say that that wasn't what the entire faction believed.
Yeah, so the
But then
issue...
like as soon as it kind of cut back, like as soon as they realized that they were like potentially stepping on the toes of how the faction was being perceived, they immediately stopped and they changed their tone.
Yeah, it was one of those things that I think, to your point, is like a political issue in game where every time they did something, because they were part of our faction, there's a weird thing with Reckoning where it's supposed to be faction on faction issues,
But
right?
most of the players, like, they prefer the game of like that almost like slight tension between factions where they want to like negotiate and like only go to like fight when it really matters, or like have fights in between individuals that don't represent the factions.
Yeah, like if I go and do a thing and people get upset about it, it shouldn't be they're upset with my whole faction. They can just be upset with me, right?
But the problem with, I think, the Rivlins specifically is that almost everything ended up reflecting on our faction because we're a little bit non-cohesive.
Yeah.
So like, there was a bit of a problem with the Rivlin camp this year.
Yeah.
Where
the tone was really dark.
Tone was really dark, to the point like, it was really bitter and kind of like really hateful toward the outside, to the point that like signs were put up on our gate. It's like, none of you allowed in here whatsoever.
Yeah.
We had like, when we were doing quests and stuff, we couldn't bring other people from the camp, from other factions into the camp.
Right.
They get berated at the
Which
gate.
were like quest dependent. Like I was like, I need to bring this person in. We set
like
up a
I
quest.
think we had a quest of like a Rivlin that was helping with the soup, and then
Yeah.
because you couldn't just bring the person in to talk to them, you had to drag her away from the soup.
Yeah.
Because like they wouldn't let him walk the few feet into the camp.
And we ran into issues with that a lot too, because our characters, one, again, as like kind of quest givers, it wouldn't make sense. So when we were attacking the Vatican, for example,
like we had a lot of Vatican quests going, because they were the most kind of like
engaged
lore
with it.
cohesive. Like throughout the year, they had made a ton of lore about their faction.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have made any sense with the connections we had made and the things that we had currently in the works if like, hey, person I've just given a quest to, I'm gonna go stab you now, right? Like that made no sense.
Especially since a lot of the fights that the Rivlins started kind of were they were unfounded or not really led by leadership. They were just a bunch of angry
different
people.
like, so there was a gold game in which whoever had like the most gold at the end wins or whatever, so you could raid each other's gold. So like the Vatican came in and raided when we were very lightly guarded or whatever, like and the Rivlin response was to try to like waylay their whole camp, and they had this door that was impenetrable, so they just basically like fenced them in so they couldn't come out.
They took a table and put it to the door, and then they're like, come out and fight us. And the Vatican are like, remove the door and we will. And they're like, no.
The big problem with that, like at least from my character's point of view, is like, okay, if you like, they did it when we were lightly guarded, they did it smart. And your response to that, to me, isn't smart. Like, they can now have time to prepare, and because you've held up this town for so long, other factions decided they didn't
got
like
mad.
us. Yeah.
Like, the Hadrians eventually took the side of the Vatican because that barricade stayed for so long and took up the entirety of the center of the camps that, like, artisans and Hadrians moving through the area were getting assaulted or like berated or whatever, and the Hadrians were like, nope, this can't go on any longer, so they attacked the Rivlins, which allowed the Vatican to push back, and the Rivlins were cut down.
Yeah, for us though, like they would do things during that attack. It was, if you don't join us, you're a traitor. And like Ryan got like almost court-martialed for it because he didn't join the fight or whatever. So like my character's standing there and he's like, okay.
Like they're like, join the fight or you're a traitor.
Yeah. And so like my character's like, well, I can't go and kill the people who I'm doing a quest for. And if I don't join the fight,
then
I'm a traitor.
Basically
So my character at this point had become friends with everybody. So he like saunters through the battlefield and like
they all
nobody
move aside because they don't want to attack Garrett.
Yeah, I walk over and I look down at one of the Vaticans that I'm doing a quest with that he got downed. I look at him and I heal him.
You go mend.
I go mend, and then I go participated, and then I left.
Yeah, but then like after that, every single time we went into the camp, like we were basically pariahs.
Yeah,
like,
we were treated like traitors.
We were treated like traitors. I know I tried to do a lot of political game, and in the beginning I tried to bring like, I've started these trade deals with the Vatican that could really benefit the Rivlin people. Or I've done this thing, or I've done that thing, or I've been invited to the Hadrian Masquerade. If anyone wants to come, we could try to do some like negotiation and like try to like have some relationships. And every single time I tried to come back to the Rivlin camp to bring this game to people, I was pretty much shot down and told that like I was a traitor, I was foolish or an idiot for thinking that any of this would go well. And I was like, it was a hard cut down to the point that I just didn't want to be in the Rivlin camp anymore, because it was either like, you're an idiot for trying to do these things, or you're a traitor.
Yeah, which is fine, because we just like noped out to other camps.
Yeah, because every other camp loved us.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like the Rivlins didn't seem to understand just the soft power that we had accomplished by making everyone our friends.
Yeah.
To the point that we talked to some of the people after game, and they're like, you would have trusted our character to guard your gold, wouldn't you? And they're like, yup.
There were times where I was the only one in somebody's camp. They're like, Gareth, you all right? We got to go do a thing. I'm like, absolutely. And they left, and I'm just like, it's just me, just here, just chilling. Like,
could have stolen your
gold. Could have
gold.
stole all your stuff. It's
and
fine.
if people played that game where they made friends with people and then like secretly let their friends in, or like you mentioned, like bring a bunch of people into the camp, and then when others are gone, then you attack.
Before, where I was kind of shot down hard with like some of the Rivlin stuff and kind of treated more poorly at my own camp. Like my initial plan was like, we're gonna go in under like peace and party and stuff, because that gate of theirs works both ways.
Yeah, you can close it if you're on the inside.
So just like make sure there's more of us in there, or that like we have hidden arms in there or whatever, or even just have somebody outside of the gate that's willing to like pass weapons through once you've secured the gate.
Yeah.
And like, just take it over. There wasn't that. There was times where there were more Rivlins in their camp than there were Hadrians. Than there were Vatican. I'm just like, it would be. There are so many more smart ways to do it.
Like
than,
Vatican always waited until there was a battle on the other side of the castle that all the Rivlins were at.
Yeah, like the first night, I was yelling at the Vatican gate, but it wasn't because they stole our gold. Like, they raided and it wasn't a successful raid.
Yeah, they couldn't find our gold.
It was because we were just sharing drinks with them, and we were being like very friendly with them and everything.
And then they attacked you.
And then they attacked the gate guards, and they like needlessly just walked up, killed the gate guards, and tried to like steal the stuff that was near the gate. And for me, it was more of a like
hey, we accepted you into our camp, and we were friendly to you. Like, if you want to raid us, that's fine, but don't
don't play that game.
Don't play that game. But the thing is, like, the Vatican responded really well. Where, like, people from the Vatican came over, and they're like, one of them had a sword they handed to you, and they're like, this is my family sword, and until we solve this, because that was not honorable.
Right.
Until we solve this, I'm giving you my sword, and when you return it, that is you saying that our honor is restored. Yeah. And that was so epic.
That was
like,
great.
He came,
it
he
was
sat
so
by our
good.
fire, he apologized, and eventually, when it got to the point, like, the people that had attacked us had to come and apologize to you to get the sword back.
I was just like, you haven't earned your honor back from me yet. And they were just like, they're like, okay, no, we've talked it out. Everything should be okay. I'm like, oh, you're sorry. But to me, though, that was the difference in methods, where, like, for the people who just, like, attacked a gate that was well secured and whatever, like, nothing happened. But for me, who, like, politicked and played with it, like,
they came and apologized to you.
It became a thing.
You basically, those like 2 or 3 people that attacked.
Yeah.
The rest of their faction went, we're so sorry, Gareth will fix this.
Yeah.
Because we had proven that we were friends to their faction, and weren't going to, like, we weren't the kind of people that are just going to attack them randomly or not listen to them or anything like that. And that formed a sort of, it wasn't just whoever's attacking whoever.
And the role play with the Vatican was so good.
It really was.
It was so good. You guys were amazing.
A lot of like, so we had a lot of good interactions with all the factions. I think the Hadrians had a lot of good, like, there was a lot of them that don't agree with the war anymore, or weren't part of it, and they're role-playing with Rivlins to kind of understand like that in-between of our spaces. The Vatican have this like really deep lore and culture to the like they've made throughout the year, and interacting with that, and we did trade deals and had like an assassination and made friends with people. The Suzak Mar are all like amazingly like quirky and fun and just
so
joyful.
Chill.
It's so like to be in their camp. It's just like to have fun. Yeah.
So those were like, again though, it's kind of fun to start the video off being like, here's a bunch of negatives, but like overall, it was so much fun. Every interaction was great.
Yeah, even like we became we didn't get to role play our characters very much, because in the end we did a lot of quest giving. And like running around and even just the little quests. I think I tried to have 2 roleplay interactions with the same person, and both of them got interrupted like 5 times to the point that I'm so sorry.
People just walking up being like, is this an item for you?
And I'm like, sure.
It was so cute because people would find that in the place that we had the game,
the Renaissance fairs.
They would have like Renaissance fairs and stuff. So there's
leftover decorations.
Yeah, random little things. So people would find stuff just in the woods, and they'd come running up to us and be like, is this a quest item? And we're just like,
no, but we started to make up a thing because a lot of them were Halloweenish. So we're like, I think there might be cultish activity in the area.
Could you find more of these, and we'll pay you good silver?
Could you find more proof of these things?
Yeah, we turned everything into a game. People would come up bringing a random
like
thing.
Someone brought a magnet, and you're like, lodestones are very rare in this land.
I'll give you 3 silver for it, and they're like 5, and I'm like 4, and it's a deal. It's so much fun.
It was so much fun. Speaking of the quests, we had probably about 20 quests, some of them which were like more expansive, like they were like fetch quests that we could keep putting out. But we did all of it within like 2 weeks of the game. So like I wrote a newspaper that had a bunch of hooks in it. I wrote all of the different quests, printed out quest cards as reminders, got physical representations for all of them.
Like letters like that would go
Careful,
on people's
that's character
cards.
secrets.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's the assassination note. You can share that.
Yeah, assassination note.
So like assassination note. Originally I put out a bunch of relics that were supposed to just be fetch quests. But in the end, like I almost got none of them back because people turned them into story all by themselves. Where they'd be like, the blue sapphire was like used in political negotiations. It was
things were used in rituals.
Yeah, the like Skull of Storms was used in a ritual, which like by the end of the game, the sword, like cursed sword. So the quick rundown of the actual story of the game that ended up happening, which most of it was player created. The official story was that Hillshire, a hold, has disappeared, and that some caravans are disappearing based on bandit attacks. The bandits were handled by player liaison, Ben from LARPshire.
That was from LARPshire, which great job.
Yeah, and then the orcs were handled by Joel, a member of staff. Which I feel like we should take a moment before we continue and really shout out Joel, Aaron, and Gabby from staff.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they worked so hard to make the game in that space.
All the player liaisons worked hard, but these are the ones we worked
like
directly
the staff.
with.
That's the staff.
Okay,
so
the staff.
The player liaisons, like Ben from the Rivlins, the LARPshire from the Rivlins, worked really hard on the bandits. The Camilla from the Hadrians
awesome.
and a Gaius, I believe, was the other one. They made huge, big story for everyone. Like Camilla was the one who came up with the fact that there's this cursed sword, and anyone who touches it becomes a possessed. So you remember from last year, the orcs could possess people to attack on their behalf. They become crazy. So Camilla made up this sword that, like, if anyone touches it, they become possessed and crazy.
Like, some people RP'd that. Like, there was one person who wasn't supposed to, like, be possessed or whatever. But they grabbed it on the battlefield, they picked it up, and people were like, no! And then he realized what he did, and he immediately starts falling down and starts convulsing, and he starts getting back up again, and people are, like, taking him down.
And then Camilla also made, like, this whole system of, like, you can make purification scrolls where people wrote out these big poems to their gods to petition this person to be cleansed. And then Gaius had this big epic fight with the orcs where he became corrupted himself in a different way based on like their roleplay.
Their lore,
their lore in a way that couldn't be cured. So he's like, I'm gonna do my final walk and he walks into the fight and dies.
Yeah.
Basically fights to the death.
So cool.
The Vatican player liaisons were really great at like being there for their community. I had like both of them reach out to me to try to involve which is one of the reasons why we had so many Vatican quests, of trying to involve their people and get as much game as possible,
right?
Just consistently all through.
Yeah.
And then the Suzak Mar player liaisons.
Suzak Mar,
one of them was Joel, who was doing the orcs.
Yeah, they helped out.
And then the other
with
was
quests.
the prince.
Yeah. Well, they helped out with quests. Like we had this whole list of different bounty board things.
Yeah, they came up like I think
and
the
a
prince.
sack of coins.
It's just like, hey, we want to make. This is working really well.
Yeah.
We want to make game for people.
Yeah.
Slowly put these out.
Yeah, fantastic. Like all of that was really really
just
cool.
a big shout out. We talked about Theseus before. He created a ton of game for people.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the player liaisons that created a ton of game for people.
And Joel, the orcs in general, everybody
the orcs
who played
in general, everyone
Cursed.
who played Cursed and the orcs, like you guys were amazing.
The orcs were amazing. They were so cool.
They were pretty great.
Yeah, really, really threatening.
And then shout out to Aaron, Gabby, and
Yeah.
Joel, because like they were constantly running around. Like Gabby was quartermaster, so she kind of got a little bit stuck.
Yeah.
But Aaron was constantly running around.
He facilitated everything for us. We needed a bunch of silver to make sure our game
Aaron
could
was
happen.
like, "I got you, boo."
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was awesome of them, and,
Yeah.
and like all of our interactions with staff was like pretty amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty
They were
great.
pretty great people.
Yeah.
On the topic of thanks to people, thank you to everyone that, like, first of all, replied to the survey we put out, because all of our quests, we basically just asked people, is there any backstory information you want injected into the world? Is there any, like, quests you would want to do?
Right.
And then we built
what kind of
off
quests
of
are
that.
you interested in?
Yeah, and a lot of people responded, and almost every person that responded, and then, like, other people in the community really stepped forward to help us make these quests and help make game. And then it was so fun to take all of these like quest ideas, and then we would just talk over them,
Interweave them
and
together.
we're like, here's we had one that was someone had a notebook that she sketches everything she sees. Her character name was Ire. And I was like, what if you saw in your travels a rare plant that is really rare and really like potent divination magic called Moon Thistle? And we had this whole quest where people had to go and get her journal or her, and then turns out the journal doesn't have enough information to find it, so then they have to bring her into the woods, and Moon Thistle only blooms at night and has to be harvested then. So we worked with Ben then to get bandits to attack them while they were collecting
Which, by the way, I was part of the security force who went in with her, and like we're there, and then like Ben, like the folks from Larpshire and whoever else was in there as the bandits, just kind of melt out of the darkness.
It was
and
amazing. I wasn't there, but I could hear it.
He
and
was
see
so
shadows.
deliciously like casual bandit, like, oh hey, I see you've made it to our woods. We protect these woods type of deal, and like for a small price, we can help protect you in the woods. And we're like, no, we're all set. We don't need your protection. He's like, oh Fred, you need our protection.
Meanwhile,
It's
Eris
very
is like frantically gathering the
she's
herbs
trying
while
to.
you're...
We're trying to back him off a little bit, and I cast friend spell on him. I'm like, we don't need to pay you anything. You're my best friend. Everything is fine. And he's like, oh yeah. He goes, absolutely. You don't have to pay anything since we're such good friends. He's like, but I don't know them. And I'm like, damn it. It was really good.
It was really good, and like our quest, and then the Moon Thistle ended up being used for like 2 different other quests.
Yeah.
One of which we didn't get to run, but like the other one was Vatican was part of a clan that was lost to time.
Yeah.
And there was like a box from his clan that had been found in like the community that couldn't be opened. So like we had to put together, like they had to get the Moon Thistle. They had to go to a Suzak Mar who was a prophet, a seer, and use the Moon Thistle in a tea that would like enhance their power enough that they could reach back into time and find the ritual to open up this box.
So
and then we
cool.
went in the woods where the magic is most powerful and all sat around in a circle and did this ritual. And then it opened up, and it was like a crystalline dragon skull, which is supposed to be like the ashes of people who have proven themselves a dragon at heart and soul are mixed with the resin of the forest and gems and stuff, and then put into trees to guard over the forest forevermore.
Yeah.
And you did divination on it.
Yeah.
And then we also had like a pendant made by the same people who make my crow pendant of a dragon that he then got to keep.
Yeah, for like out of game. Gets to
Yeah,
keep.
and it was like those kind of interwoven things.
My favorite like interwoven example for myself was because of the connections we all have. Is it okay to give away like some of the secrets as far as like Evelyn's involvement and things too, or
Sure.
don't metagame?
Don't
How's that?
metagame.
So she's starting like trade routes and stuff like that, and Gareth is the kind of the darker side of things,
so
right?
we kind of have a thing of in the shadow, in the light.
Right.
And both of our characters want the best for the Riverland people, especially.
Right.
But we want the best of like peace for all.
For the march.
Yeah, for the march. So I work in the light. I make, I'm the solar exchange.
Right.
I do diplomacy, trade routes, knowledge gathering, like collecting ancient relics and preserving them, that kind of knowledge gathering. He works the masks.
Yeah, sometimes people...
He's in the shadows.
Yeah, sometimes when, like, politics fail and stuff like that, other things have to happen, like, you know, people need to be bribed or blackmailed or, you know...
Or assassinated.
Yeah, or assassinated. Like, things have to happen to move things forward, so that's where I step in to do that. So we interwove a bunch of those things that people said the kind of gameplay they wanted to play. Like, somebody wanted to be an assassin. Somebody, you know, wanted to be a potion maker, like an alchemist or whatever.
Yeah, so basically how it worked was someone came to me and they're like, hey, the Vatican are starving, that's why we raid.
Right.
If you trade us food, we'll trade you all these other things, and then the Vatican don't have to raid anymore.
Right.
So I was like, that sounds like a good deal.
Right.
So I'm sitting down and having trade deals with the Vatican, like writing out contracts and stuff. Then we make up an assassination quest that basically there is a Rivlin lord.
Who's very, like, xenophobic and, like...
Yeah, he doesn't want Vatican in the march.
Right.
So he's like, no, anytime the Vatican get too close or work too close to the Rivlins, like, he sends an assassin after them or their families.
Right.
So we make an assassin, like, he's the mask, so he...
The assassin things funnel through me,
yeah,
right?
so the lore that we worked through with the staff was that in the year that passed, I built up my trading company, you hunted down the Countess.
Yeah, who was the original, like, head of the underworld. So there was that assassination thing would have usually went through her. They don't know it's now going through me.
Yeah.
So the assassination was for this person that she's working with and for her.
Yeah.
So, like, I look at the assassination for her, I'm like, well, this person has to die because nobody
but we work
gets
it
attacked.
subtly. So you basically, you went to, first of all, you got dirt on someone who knows how to do poisons.
Yeah. So part of the quest was, hey, there's this person who's an alchemist who knows how to do poison. So you have to steal the secrets from them. Like they keep notes on them. So they had like a pickpocket quest where they had to go and steal this thing from them.
Yeah.
With that dirt, I was able to be like, hey,
Give me a poison.
You're gonna make us a poison now.
But it has to have a cure.
Right. Something that is gonna be really bad, but that you know how to cure. Then I turned it into an assassination quest, so I hired an assassin, and I'm like, you're going to, when I get them alone, you're going to stab this person
with this poison.
Like, I
blood
gave them
petal poison.
a bottle of poison. Put it on your blade, stab them with it. Which he does. And then I start freaking out because they come up to me and they're like, Gareth, a word with you. And I'm like, uh-oh, the jig is up. They
jig is up.
Figured it out or whatever. And they're like, there was an assassination attempt on this and this. I'm like, oh no, well, you know, what do you need me for? And they're like, we need help. We understand that you deal with the shadows and stuff. Maybe you can help us find what this is. I'm like, I will help you investigate whatever underhanded person has gotten this going. And like, I became one of their, like, investigators for figuring it out.
So eventually, there was a whole quest for it ended up being, like, the Vatican people, to save their friend, went on a quest to a Suzak Mar person that had, like, this rare herb that could be used to make to cure the poison.
Right.
But Galdir was the assassination victim. We gave him fake blood, like, that he could, like, bite a
yeah,
thing.
he's, like, spitting
We got
up
it to
blood.
him late,
Like...
so, like, he speared on himself as he was being healed, and we're all like, the blood it's purging from his system, he's bleeding, it's coming out,
but,
it's working.
Like, the way it worked out was so fun because it's that, like, quest on quest on quest on quest, right?
And then
where,
that led into, and I think it was okay for us to talk about because he's gonna, like, announce it to the march.
Right.
Where Roran, one of the like head leaders of the Vatican, his father was assassinated last year, seemingly by Hadrian, but we kind of, through the note, it says, a poison upon your people, just as your people are a poison upon this land. How many sons and fathers must die before you understand you aren't welcome here? And he's like, even if that's not about my father, someone's, like, if I find the person who's sending out assassins, I might be able to find out who killed my father.
Right.
And then he finds out that it's it's after like working
This
with you.
particular noble, yeah.
Yeah, that it's this noble. So now he's going to levy charges officially against this noble.
Which works out great for like our backstory too. Like there's the part of our game where it's like, for Garrett's point of view, he fulfilled the contract. So like the people in the underworld are like, yeah, no, he's reliable.
Yeah, he did it.
Yeah, we made good relationships with the Vatican because we were able to heal them and get everything all
And
set.
still get the trade routes through.
And then also
also
get justice for somebody's father being
Assassinated unfairly.
and that person gets taken out so that you're
I'm
safe.
no longer in
Yeah,
it's just
so
like
it's
it
like,
all worked
it
together.
was such
this
a
really
tangled
big-
little web, but it all like worked out perfectly.
It really did, and a lot of our quests ended up being that way, where we set them out to be like fetch quests or like simple stories or whatever, and then in just the no plan survives contact with the community.
Yeah, it all changes.
It all changed and evolved and became much more lived in and amazing.
It really, and again, thanks for everybody who participated in the quest, but to all of our like NPCs who are the ones carrying around the the items to be pickpocketed or whatever.
I love Mother Linaway.
Yeah.
Got one of the quest items by taking a pair of scissors and just cutting it off.
Yeah, it just walks by and goes clip, and like
And
straight
we're
up
like-
a cut purse, like
Yeah,
100% a cut
great.
purse.
We're like, that was so smart.
Yeah,
That's my
super
favorite way
slick.
someone's stolen
Yeah,
something.
yeah, or
like the Skull of Storms, Tristan had it at first and was gambling with it.
Yeah.
And then both, I think, Theseus and Dedan tried
Dedan
to...
was awesome.
Dedan was awesome. Tried to steal it from him, but at the same time. So I think Theseus grabbed it and ran, and Dedan chased him.
And killed
then,
him and took
I think
it.
he friended him.
yeah.
And then friended him, took it, and then also ran. And then, like, at that point, I was like, no one's bringing me anything. Should I hunt down these items? So I went to Tristan. Tristan's like, oh yeah, all this happened. So I went to Dedan, and he's like, no, I sold it to someone. So I was like, okay, I can go buy it back, and then I can put it back in the system as kind of a quest item again. And then Dedan apparently just like fleeced me. He never sold it to that person in the first place. He just knew that that person was somewhere I couldn't reach. So he's like, Dedan's like, I can buy it back from them. I sold it for 15 silver. If you pay me 20, I'll get it back for you. And I was like, okay. And then he had never gotten rid of it. He had it the whole time.
Things like that though, like the community is so fun. It really was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think like, while we didn't get to roleplay much,
Right.
except kind of during the battles,
Right.
like having those quests for people, it was almost a trial for ourselves.
Right.
Because I know in the past we've talked about wanting to potentially run events, and I think in this kind of like pressure test of running these quests, like we genuinely enjoyed running these things, seeing the satisfaction on people's faces when they like realize a piece of the puzzle, or like when they finally open the box, or seeing how mysteries spin bigger and bigger. Like by the time that the box was going to be open, there was a bunch of people that the ritual was about to take place, and everyone's like, the box is going to be open! And they followed us into the woods.
To that, I mean, you all let us know, would you be interested in a skill tree run event?
Because I think at this point we're interested in running one.
Yeah, I think we are. I think we've had a lot of, we had 15 hours worth of a drive to talk about it.
Yeah, we already made like a basis of a world because we can't help ourselves.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that world too.
Yeah.
If it doesn't end up being, if people don't show interest, I at least want it to be a D&D thing or something. But yeah, if you're interested, let us know. Maybe we figure out like a Kickstarter or something and see where it goes.
Like 2025.
2025.
I think next year would be a little bit.
Yeah.
Even for us, I know we tend to do things like hardcore last minute.
Yeah.
But 2024 would be a little
it's a little too much
too
for
close
us.
to the wire.
Yeah, let us know. So let us do just really quick, like our in character, just kind of high game moments.
Yeah,
Like what's
like-
something that you really like was
our
your
character's
thing?
experiences. I think Evelyn really enjoyed kind of all the trade deals and everything, but I think the battles is where we got to roleplay our characters the most.
Yeah.
So you lended your bow to a friend of ours, Ricky, that
Yep.
came, and she wanted to try it out. So Gareth was without his bow the whole time. And what we didn't realize is that very much changed the dynamic as of us in a combat situation, where normally we're both in the back
Yeah.
watching the fight.
Gareth is very protective of her, so like he's usually shooting from the back, and if anybody gets close enough, he's
Then
like
he pulls out his
pushes her
swords.
back, pulls out swords, and
Yeah,
it's like,
normally we're both kind of like watching the battlefield, going where we're needed together.
yeah,
And then suddenly you're just with your swords.
yeah, I'm like a skirmisher now. And
So
I
now
have
you
to
go
run out.
right back into the battle, and neither of us realized that we were no longer fulfilling those same roles. So I acted the same.
Yeah.
So there was like orcs. No one knew that the orcs rose yet. It was the first battle. So like 4 orcs start rising when they're on the left, when all the fighting is turned to the right. And I'm like screaming like, there are orcs behind you, and suddenly they all turn and they rush that way. What I guess no one noticed was that one orc had been down in the middle that had started to rise again, because now they were torn both that way. So right behind Evelyn, an orc rises and just screams, and I turn around just in time for him to stab me through the stomach. Because I'm an artisan, but I purposely don't wear any purple. Mostly it's just because I want there to be like consequences.
Yeah, just to know, if you
threat.
wear purple, you are non-combatant.
You're non-combatant. People aren't
Nobody
supposed
can
to
touch
hit you.
you.
I purposely don't, because I'm okay with being hit and I'm okay with the consequences. So he stabs me through the stomach, like basically like right along my side. I go, and I fly back and land in the sand really hard because it surprised me. So I throw myself back. And everyone else later was like, "Are you okay? Because you landed really hard." I landed in sand, and sand went flying everywhere.
Yeah.
But like that kind of shook Evelyn and Garrett.
Yeah.
Because like I got taken down hard.
To the point where my favorite character moment and kind of a way I can play that was like he didn't like the fact that he wasn't there to protect or whatever. So in a much later fight, they get separated and like you're in the front of the castle.
Yeah,
I'm
so
in the back
that
of the
one
castle.
was my favorite fight. Just how long and
Oh, it was like
war
a
it was.
brutal fight. Yeah.
Yeah, it just like I think they were told like we're supposed to lose, so
Yeah.
just keep getting up until they get their objective.
Yeah. So I'm like in this town where like to get to where she is, there's a bridge which is completely overrun by orcs.
We got separated.
The center of town is completely overrun by orcs, and I have to go around the entire castle to get to where she's at. So like he looks at the bridge and he's like, "There's no way I'm getting past that bridge." So there's the center of town. He's like, "Here I go." So like for me, it was probably one of the most epic things I've ever done in my entire life. Because as I'm running, like combatants are in my way. So I'm running. And like this girl turns around with her bow, and I hit the arrow out of her, like off of her bow, so she couldn't fire it at me. And I hit her, but like I don't stop to finish anything. I'm getting them out of my way.
Yeah.
So I hit that, and I hit her. I run past her, and another orc comes and like swings at me, and I block, and I hit him in the gut, and I run. I jump over this other one who's swinging a mace, and like I catch his mace on my sword, and like we pull him back, and
a flail, yeah.
Yeah, his flail is like wrapped around my sword.
So you rip it away.
Well, no, he's pulling back and I'm pulling, but as I'm going, I look at the other people around him, like, hit him! And then like they start hitting him while he's stuck, and then like I drop that and I keep running, and I hit one more person on the way.
And you're just booking it across the entire
I run
castle.
across the entire castle in time to like get there, and there's more, and I'm like, okay, but at least like you're there, so I'm
Yeah.
like there to defend and help.
So when they first attacked us at the bridge.
Yeah.
And we ran across the bridge. And we're like, we can flank them.
Yeah.
So we ran across the entire thing to the other side. This was before you did your mighty chase. And then we got to the other side of the castle, and it turns out there's a whole lot of them still there. So now there's like 4 of us. Like,
against like 3 whole orcs, which it takes a lot to take down an orc.
There's like
A
3
lot.
orcs, and then there's like 4 possessed, and we're like, oh no. So like luckily they're torn back and forth between like going to see if that other side needs help, and then like attacking us. But Gareth is like fighting deeper and deeper into them, and I'm in the back with like 3 or 4 fighters, and I'm like picking one up just in time to shove them back for another person to go down. I'm like, here we go again.
And I'm in the process of fighting Ben from Larpshire. He's an archer, and I'm trying to close on him to like kill him because he's a good shot. Ben's a really good shot. So he's like a menace. So I'm like dodging arrows trying to get to him, and I hear you guys being like, Gareth!
Turn around! Because he had taken down a bunch of possessed, but now they were rising. So he turns around and he's like 3 people behind him deep.
Yeah, and because they're yelling, like they were archers and stuff, so they're pointing at you, but when you're like, turn around, they turn around too, and they see me, and I see them, and I'm like, well, shit. So like starting running and dodging and trying to get
And you
towards
get to the
them.
castle wall, and then there's an orc there.
Yeah, man.
It was I think that was my favorite fight, just because it felt the most like all the other fights kind of felt like skirmishes.
Yeah.
Like they were over pretty quickly. Like they were epic, but they were over.
Right.
That one felt desperate and long.
Yeah.
And like you had to keep desperately dragging people up or purifying the possessed to just barely skim by surviving.
Yeah, that was one of the ones that were like desperate. Like it was the first time during those battles I'm like, oh no,
We might
we're
lose.
in trouble.
Yeah, that was the first time in like that I felt the same, where
In
I was
fact-
like, I need to heal people because if they don't get up, we're going to die.
Normally when the orcs attack too, they're pretty small because they're so strong. They're pretty small little groups of them. They'll come up, and maybe a few like of the possessed or whatever. But like we're there when they first come up, and they're coming up off the hill, and we're at the shop kind of area, and there's usually not a lot of people back there anyways. So there wasn't a lot of people, and we see them coming up. We're like, call for help, orcs are coming, and we're getting ready, and then more come, and like an army comes through the woods, and we're like, we all look at each other, and go, run.
And we run all the way to the bridge.
So with all of that said, what was your overall impression?
I think that the community is pretty amazing. Like I like just the fact that they were given so little
Right.
and did so much with it.
So much.
Like, and I include like the staff,
Yeah.
the player liaisons, the players themselves. Everyone was so amazing during the game.
Right.
And everyone like tried their best to make sure everyone else had like the most fun possible. Sure, there's a few standouts of people who didn't quite play to lift, as we've been told it's called. But overall, I think one of the reasons people are so excited for Reckoning every year is because like just how amazing the people that go are.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if there was no other story thing behind it, like if we knew going into it there wouldn't be any, I'd still want to go just because we could all we'd all plan on making ourselves story,
yeah,
right?
like
that's...
I'd go into the middle of a big field with those people for like 5 days.
Yeah,
and just make up our own stuff. Like they're so amazing, and it's so fun interacting with them. And just when you think that you've like met all the cool people, then suddenly like someone else introduces like themselves to you.
Yeah.
You're like, you're so cool.
And the issue was like the things that were put together, and again, like big shout out to Joel and stuff, like the things that actually did happen that were planned were awesome. They just, I don't think they were enough to fill in the time that was there, and it wasn't cohesive enough.
There wasn't a thread through the game. There wasn't any official like story-based game or anything like that to really engage players. And I know a lot of people were kind of expressing confusion by just like the second day. They're like, why are we here?
Yeah.
Like, why are we subjecting ourselves to sitting in the middle of a field being constantly attacked by bandits and orcs?
Right. But like we said earlier on, I'd go again. I had so much fun. Like, if the point of it is to have a fun experience with people who like the same type of stuff you do, right? Like, it was so much fun to get lost in those moments. The last night at the Suzak Mar camp was the first time, I think, during a LARP that I got completely engrossed in it, where like...
like, you stood up and they're like, Gareth! And people are dancing and singing and the
like,
fire's going.
By a fire, and there's people dancing, and they're playing these drums and stuff, and it's like, this is what it would feel like
to be in that
to
culture,
be in that culture,
moment.
in that world, like,
In that
and
moment.
it was so, like, just get lost and so much fun. There's no experience like LARPing, so even like if the LARP itself is like a sub experience or whatever, which again, I had a great time. It's still a better time than anything I've ever done.
Yeah, like I would, like you said, we would still go. I think we're still planning to go.
Yeah, we'll go next year.
Next year. We'll plan a lot more quests.
Yep, and I know for a fact that the staff very much took to heart.
Like they listened to a lot of the player feedback.
Yep.
And I think the survey goes out today.
Yeah. So I know in talking to the staff that, you know, the issues that, I mean, this was said last time, so we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's always, so far, Reckoning is so worth it just because of the people you will meet there and the time you will have.
Yeah.
Speaking of the community,
Yeah.
last time we kind of only gave our impression of the game. And we realized that Reckoning and any kind of community event like that is a very diverse, and like we were not everywhere at once. We didn't
Right.
get every experience. So while we were at the event, we opened up to players, especially while we were packing up, to come up to us and do a short little player interview where they gave their input on the game.
Anybody who was interested. We
Yeah,
didn't
we
pick
kinda
anybody or whatever. We just
He
let
stood
them
in the
come.
middle and I ran around in circles basically saying, we're doing player interviews. These are the questions. If you want to go, go.
Right.
And people went. And it was good to hear just like, I think a lot of them reflect the same sort of things we said, which is there might have been some problems.
Right.
But it was like so worth it.
Yeah, so let's let them talk about it. We've got those interviews coming up right now. But in the meantime, keep leveling up, you. That's your thing.
Yeah, you totally stole it.
I'm sorry, Brady was starting
it's
again.
too
No,
late.
no, no.
No,
But in the meantime.
keep leveling up, you.
All right, so we're going to get the negative out of the way first. What was your least favorite thing about the whole Reckoning experience?
Yellow band for food. Out of character, hard to hide up my sleeve.
The Vatican siege, when the Vatican built their massive, awesome gate, it was great, except for we didn't have a way to break that gate down, and we couldn't go around it because it was only like, yay big or so. And so it was back and forth. Archers were trading shots, but then it's like, no, you could hit it into the camp. It could, become an accidental fire arrow.
Right.
They're right.
That's true, yeah.
And so it became frustrating because they didn't want to come out. We couldn't get in, and it was like, it lasted for too long.
Yeah.
Blow through my luscious mane.
Blow through your luscious mane.
Least favorite thing? Probably the false alarms with the cursed attacks, because we had a couple of those, but that's a small thing, really. It's a young LARP. I understand that there are going to be some logistical issues that need to be sorted out, and obviously there's going to be miscommunication between players and staff.
But this year, I was a little disappointed in the lack of, which is weird, but the lack of immersion. And I get it, people were restless towards the end. I came late, but like this for out of character is helpful for me personally, for my brain and immersion purposes as a newbie. This really helps because I don't want people to think that Gwen is Gabby and Gabby is Gwen.
Yeah, most of the stuff that we did that I had fun with was player created. Yeah. So it was I understood pretty quickly. I've run a few LARPs, so I kind of was like looking for the story, and I figured it out, and I was like, oh, this isn't gonna handle for 2 or 3 days. So I just went around and players started making stories, and that was kind of the worst part because I was like, we're here for that,
right?
And then it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh, probably you, because I didn't get to see you.
Wow. Okay, you turned it around. I see.
No, to be honest, the only negative I really took away from it was, and this is purely personal, I don't think I can do a 5-day event. I think 4 days would have been just right.
The Prince.
Yes, I am Prince Suleiman of the Suzak Mar.
Thank you for lowering yourself to deign an interview.
So, besides all of the poor people being in close proximity to me...
Of course, the smell.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, the event's still going through growing pains, and so they're still figuring out how to keep everything organized and how to facilitate, fun and interesting gameplay. So, I'd like to see a little bit more organization. But, that being said, the players do a lot of the fun making on their own. So, there's plenty of stuff to do. A lot of it's player driven. That's one of my favorite things about the event. So
a little bit disorganized at some parts. Some events didn't go how they were supposed to go, and the player agency was kind of all over the place. But I mean, it's changing next year, so I'm excited for that. And I know that they're changing a lot of staffing and everything like that. So I'm coming back.
The rain.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I didn't enjoy. I actually really had an amazing time, and I have no complaints.
I guess it would have to be the sort of rivalent personality of, we have protagonist syndrome. I had it, then I got nerfed twice, and I'm like, okay, how do I still keep having fun and enable other people to have fun without us having that stigma? But once that kind of got handled after the second day, and I was able to start involving people, everyone just kind of fell into their groove, and it was really nice and cool.
It is both a virtue and a detriment to a game like this that all the players have so much agency and so much ability to do whatever it is that they want. But whenever you have a large group and someone brings a new piece of business to the front, right? And then we all have to debate what we're going to do about it. And one of the virtues of the Vatican as a team is that they make decisions really, really well together, compared to some of the other more fractious factions.
Like mine. Yep.
The most frustrating thing about Reckoning, I would say, would be the lack of communication about, like, just the combat mechanics in general. Because when I was possessed, a lot of people would just get back up with me instead of like waiting for a bone knitter to come over and heal them. So it was really, really confusing. But that's only my only grievance with that so far.
My assassin.
A lot of pre-game tension. Always gets me jitters, and it gets everybody in the community a little bit on edge. It's not always a great time because everybody's stressing out about something or another, and it just feeds off each other. It's not great.
Yeah.
But it's always worth it in the end.
Probably a lot of the infighting with the Rivlins. It was a great story, don't get me wrong, but it caused a lot of chaos with trying to get things done.
Yeah.
Also, this is more from the perspective of what I learned from talking to a lot of the artisans. They definitely needed a more involved system for things to do instead of just being forced to like sit and wait to do things.
Right. All right. So, what's your least favorite thing about the event?
Everything was really awesome, pretty much. I loved every bit of it. Had to sleep in a truck, so that wasn't too nice, but other than that, nothing else.
Awesome.
My least favorite thing, probably at the last day where everything was getting ready for the big orc attack. I believe it was the first one with all like 40 of them, or like in between the 40 and the 20 with the ritual, where it was just very much downtime and there was nothing to do. And my character, Goldier, had no business to attend to, so he was just kind of sitting around, full armor, kind of waiting.
My least favorite thing, sometimes it's hard to get a hold of staff members because they were so busy, and I think that a lot of the times when we're, as a sage, using communication, it required a staff member to be there, so that can get difficult sometimes.
What about, like, what was your highlight? Like, what was the high point of Reckoning for you this year?
So I played a gray hero, played Theseus, and he got into a lot of trouble with a lot of different people.
You don't say.
But my highlight was when I got to kind of shed that grayness and kind of be a leader amongst players, give a rousing speech. I got to execute like 5 or 6 orcs. That was awesome. It was great role playing, great camaraderie all around. And overall, I love the players here.
Yeah.
The players here are definitely what makes the game the game.
So what was your favorite? What was the thing that was the highlight for you?
Hands down during the Bard contest, Secret Tunnel.
Yeah.
Never forgot the words, and somebody started Secret Tunnel and it went off twice. And it was bitching because everybody knew it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
High points all across the board for me were just inserting myself into every dramatic opportunity I could and just trying to play, what's the word? No. It's
like an intermediary diplomat.
Just inserting myself into most anger-filled, crazy situations I could find and just trying to play diplomat with everyone.
Yeah, what is your favorite thing about the event?
Everything else. I love the people. I love my son, obviously. I mean, I got a son. I have a son.
We're not actually related. How many moments there were between characters where it's just like, you go up and you start talking and you out of character. No, it's like this moment is really important to them, so let's make it as cool as we can. And when you do, and that player comes to you later and it's like, that was like my favorite moment because you understood. It was like that's what matters. Like, sure, we can do all the story, but like when players understand that one hero moment can make the whole thing, that's when it's awesome.
Reconnecting with people I met at last year's event and meeting so many more people this year, and we've got a very active Discord, so being able to put faces and actual human beings to the people I've been interacting with for the last year was really exciting, and just being able to catch up both in the real world and in character, that was just so cool. I'm walking away with probably 200 more friends than I started with.
So I built a throne that could be carried by other people, so I hired some Rivlins to carry me, and a battle was about to happen. The two lines were basically in the middle, and they were about ready to fight, and they carried me through on their throne, and I was throwing silver pieces to the crowd. I said, peace, my people, peace, and all the Rivlins, they sort of like stood there and like stared at me, because like, what is he doing? And then they realized it was coins, they all scrambled. There's all these peasants on their hands and knees.
Scramble for me, peasants.
Picking up these coins. That was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
I played a cursed.
Yeah.
I was a cursed creature, and I scared the Vatican really, really bad. Like, I kept taunting them and everything, and I was nervous going into it because I was like, oh, I don't really know how to role play this. Like, people were hissing and like growling and stuff, and at one point I was like, I'll play like Harley Quinn style. I just started like laughing at everyone and taunting. It was awesome.
You were a menace. You were really good. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Thank you.
It
was a lot of fun.
It was good. I remember seeing like, where'd that come from?
All of the people was amazing. I had this really wonderful opportunity to partner up with somebody in my faction, and we did some deep investigating and uncovered the secrets of the Dark Sword. So that was really wonderful.
My favorite part was kind of being able to like unofficially liaison and speak for the Rivlins, even though like that's like a lore super like that doesn't exist, and still have that authority, not wanting to use that authority, and the Rivlins don't want me doing it, but if I do it, I represent it absolutely accurately. So that was really fun.
There was a huge face-off between the factions right here in the middle, just before the Vatican gate was barricaded by the Rivlins, and my whole faction was hiding back there, and I was in the front. And one of the Rivlins looked at me and he accused us of cowardice because we hid behind the walls. So I looked at him and I said, I'm not hiding. And I challenged him to single combat. I had no armor at all. He had studded leather. I didn't take a single hit. He went down in front of everybody.
Nice.
Oh gosh, being possessed, that was fun. Being a bow knitter and not having to do anything combat-wise was kind of boring at times, but like I found other things, and then they were like looking for possessed, and I'm like, yes, let's do it. And then I got possessed 4 times, and that was...
Oh, they want you.
And I scared my faction just yelling at them, so it was fun.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, you just called me an assassin. That was one of my favorites. But aside from that, it's just sitting around talking to each of these characters and getting to know their backstories.
Yeah.
I did not think I would be as competent in archery as I was, but I'm very grateful that you let me hear bow and quiver, because it made that so much more fun to be in that position of importance. Managed to help take down the troll that was attacking the left flank with 3 shots, and I got knocked down trying to chase down the undead Gaius, which is why I have a happy war wound to tell about back home.
Just glorious battle scars.
My favorite thing was absolutely the way that the Orcs absolutely hammed it up in every fight. I loved every interaction with them.
Probably the frickin' when it started raining and everyone just flooded into the tavern and we all started partying. That was awesome.
Oh yeah, that night was so much fun. That was such a good time. Overall impressions for anybody who's thinking of coming.
It's really great. Just make sure that you are well prepared, you kind of have some idea of the lore, and choose the faction that really resonates best with you, because we were the Suzekmar, and I wouldn't have been able to choose a better faction.
They were so vibing.
Shameless
I love
plug
them so
for the
much.
Suzekmar. Come join us.
The commitment to this that everyone brings to it, not just to make sure that they're going to have a good time, but that everyone around them is going to have a good time. And if somebody has an actual bitch, a gripe, a complaint, people are going to listen to them. It is an incredibly supportive group of people.
So yeah, this is a really great event. Honestly, it's pretty lighthearted. You know, you can just come and, you know, you don't even have to fight. Like, you could just come and vibe with your friends, and every single faction is like a family. You know, that being said, you should join the Suzekmar. It's a little overwhelming, but if you don't have any stuff, join the Discord, message me. You know, we have so many friends, so we'll get you some stuff. We'll get you out here, but you should come.
Players don't realize that they have 90% agency. There's a lot of things that you can do in here as long as you're brave enough to try. And I play a great character because I like pushing the boundaries. Last year when I played, I was like, what can I do? And it's like, really, you can do anything as long as it's not breaking the game and going against rules. And since then, I was like, cool, awesome. Well, let's get in some trouble.
I was drawn into it, and it was a great way to spend time with my family member who was also here. And it was just like easy to get into it. The people were into it.
Oh yes, I had so much fun. I can't think of a better way to spend my week.
That's awesome.
It's definitely got a few kinks that it still needs to work out, but I can definitely see that this thing has a lot of potential.
Overall impression, I love this community. I love the people. It really made the whole event. Everyone is just so not worried about everyone, but there for everyone. You know, like if you have a little bit too much to drink, like people will just check in on you constantly. And I mean, like you can join the Discord to meet people beforehand. That made me a lot more comfortable with it. And yeah, there's a lot of good resources out there.
And overall impression, like, would you come again? Did you have fun?
I had a lot of fun, and I'm definitely coming again. I'm like screwing the other LARP that I went to because it's expensive and it's only 3 days, and this is a full week and it's like cheaper. Yeah, no, I'm coming back.
That's awesome. Would you come again? Did you have fun?
Oh yeah, I had fun. I'll definitely plan on coming again.
Yeah.
Probably stay the same class, same area, same character, but we'll see how it goes.
Good. I need people to die, and you have been proven effective in this.
With respect to the leadership, the players made the game. Going into this, I paid for the ticket knowing that I was going because other people were going and we were going to have fun. I didn't pay the ticket because I expected a platter to be handed to me with a story and everything because it wasn't last time. So the overall impression was that there was a lot of build-up and then we weren't given anything. And I think a lot of players were upset. One of the best ways I've heard it described is it was a railroad game disguised as a sandbox game. So if you went out of line, you were out of line, but then we weren't giving anything to work towards. So I think the overall impression was like, it was awesome. We wouldn't be here without the leadership, but at the same time, like, ease it up a little bit and maybe give us some story to work with. But overall, I mean, I'm coming back 100%. Like, 100%. It was awesome.
Overall impression is, I mean, I had a great time. You can tell that this is the second year of something that I understand is difficult to organize. So my heart and empathy as someone who's like been that, not for LARP, but for other big events, like totally goes out to it. But there were certainly cracks.
I had a ton of fun. 10 out of 10. I want to come back next year. I just hope that it goes smoother. I hope there's more official quests so everybody can have fun. And I just genuinely hope at some point it will be less faction versus faction and more the factions versus the undead.
Would you do it again?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was this your first time, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Thank you so much.
So much of a good time.
Yeah, it's great.
And I got to meet so many good people, and I got to have so many hugs. It was so great.
Had fun.
Yeah.
But even when it's raining and that, like, the people are so nice, and like you like, they'll feed you sometimes, and like you might be feeding people or whatever. The catering was really good.
Yeah.
It's nice. Like, you don't really need to do. I'm in my pajamas right now. With just a cloak, and it just works.
I didn't notice at all.
It is so amazing watching the way that this community comes together. I mean, I love building things. I love making costumes. That's why I'm here. But to see people use them and to see them add to the story, right? To see someone lay out a map that I designed and place troops on the map, or to watch people at the gate, open the little door and, ask them what their business is. I mean, it's so much fun to see the way that all the elements that all the players have come up with finally just meet and form that final product. I mean, it's incredible.
I had an absolute blast.
Yeah.
I was enjoying every single second of it, for sure.
Nice.
Falling for that, huh? Oh, God, yeah, good. I see how it is. I'm not a Jaeger. I'm Jaeger's only. No.